What is a phantom voter? A phantom voter is a situation where a ballot has been submitted, but it is not from the real voter. Instead, it is from someone who has expired, or someone who's moved away, or someone who didn't even know they were registered, or someone who didn't complete a ballot. They didn't even vote, yet we have a ballot from them. Or it could simply be from someone who doesn't even exist, like someone who supposedly lives at a gas station, or an empty lot, or from campgrounds. In each of these cases, a crime has been committed, and a fraudulent ballot has been recorded. This is not okay. It undermines our democracy, and it desecrates the graves of those who have sacrificed that we might have our liberty and the privilege of voting. So how do we find these phantom voters? Well, it's a lot of work, but the best way is to knock on doors, and that's where our supermoms come in. Another way is using precinct mail. If you mail everyone in a precinct a letter, many of the letters will come back with a bad address that you can investigate. Another way is to use the registration database itself. You can run algorithms which identify likely phantom voters. You can examine the registration database right down to the precinct level and see all sorts of suspicious activity that you can follow up. Death records provide another way when you compare it to the registration database. I often hear county clerks say that they use signature verification to confirm the ballots from the registered voter. When I point out that many of their supposed registered voters are expired, they say, how can this be since we use signature registration? I like pointing out that dead people seem to have really good longhand. Using change of address records is also handy when you compare it with the registration database.
The first thing you need to understand about the way elections are managed is they have what they call a registration database. This is for every precinct, every county in the country. They have one of these. And in each one, you've got...
Can anybody get this?
In some states, you can download these for free.
Okay.
But some states, they're expensive. You have to download them.
Right.
But politicians use these all the time because
Right.
they tell them every person in the district.
Right.
And it also tells their voting history. Is this a Republican? Is this a Democrat? Do they usually vote? Do they not vote?
Right.
Because why would you want to go knock on, if you're a Republican, why would you go knock on a Republican's door who you know is already going to vote for you anyway?
Right.
You're
Right.
looking for the people that don't usually come out.
Right.
You want to go knock on those doors.
So why is this significant here?
Well, this is significant because this shows you, I mean, if you have access to this, which basically everybody does, you notice that this person here votes a lot and they're a Republican. But this person hardly ever votes and only every once in a
This
while.
one down here hardly never voted.
Yes.
But he only voted once here. What's that?
This is the November 3rd election here, this last column.
So the only time in his life he voted was right there.
Exactly. And there are a lot of those, too many of those this time around.
Right.
But I don't think that's an accident. I don't even think they're real.
Right.
And so when we were originally starting this work, we actually went out and knocked on doors after
To find out if a person like this was real.
Yes.
Were they real?
30%. We predicted, we went to 1,600 houses knocking on doors.
Right.
We trained a whole bunch of volunteers. It took about 4 days.
Right.
We predicted that we'd find about 30% of the houses we knocked on would have at least one phantom voter. What that means is it says on the roll that John Smith lives at this address
Right.
and that John Smith voted.
Right.
But then you go knock on the door and no John Smith lives
Right,
there.
right.
Okay, so wait a minute. That's a phantom voter.
So now that you understand what's going on, you need a strategy to help you explain this to your friends. A patriot in the Pennsylvania legislature explained to me, if you don't explain it with crayons, they won't understand it. So we need an explanation, and math is hard for some folks. So we need to find a way to explain this with crayons. When I was explaining this to a person with many years of political experience, he said, Dr. Frank, talk to me like I'm 10 years old. So I was explaining it to him, and after about 5 minutes, he says, okay, Talk to me like I'm 5. The other problem you're going to run into is that when you begin to explain this to people, it sounds like you've got a tinfoil hat on. So we've come up with a simple metaphor. Pretend you live in Ohio, and they just completed the 2020 census. So out of curiosity, you look at the 2020 census and you notice that 10% of the people in your county have blonde hair. That's interesting. You look at another county, and that county has 10% blonde hair. That's a little surprising since the other county has different kinds of folks than you. Nevertheless, you continue looking and you notice that every county you look in Ohio, has 10.0% blonde hair. That doesn't seem right to you because there are large counties, small counties, urban, rural, black, white, all kinds of variations. It just doesn't make sense to you. So then you check the neighboring state of Pennsylvania. And the first county you checked there is 13.4%. But all the counties in Ohio were 10.0%. What's going on here? Just stepping across the border, you've gone from 10.0 to 13.4. And every county you check in Pennsylvania is 13.4 over and over again. So you try Florida. And Florida, you find that the counties are 15.1% blonde hair. Every county in Florida has 15.1% blonde hair. This just doesn't make sense. You try one more state of Colorado. 18.6% of the people there have blonde hair in every county you check. So what you realize after your exploration is that the number of people with blonde hair in every county in a state is the same. So that number is being decided at a state level and regulated at a county level. That's what's going on with our elections. The result of every election in a state is being controlled at a county level, but decided at a state level. But actually, the situation is worse than this, because the 10.0% example or 18.6% example is just for a single age. Imagine having a different percentage of blonde-haired people for every age in a state and being able to predict that for every county in a state.
Phil Waldron, a cybersecurity expert and retired Army colonel, revealed on November 30th that the Dominion voting machines were connected to the internet during the election, which is illegal in the United States. Waldron's team looked at the Dominion network, which showed the increased web traffic, internet traffic on election day. In the user's manual, it tells operators to connect the Ethernet cords to the router, and the systems are connected to the internet, Waldron told a public hearing in Arizona. Waldron's allegation is aligned with the affidavit from Melissa Carone, an IT freelancer who worked for Dominion on the election day. In the manual that they provided me with, it says to make sure that every tabulating machine is connected via Ethernet cable, Carone said. She also added that, on November 2nd, the entire Dominion team had a hotel conference room in Allen Park with tabulator and adjudication machines set up, which she was tasked to assist with. Meanwhile, Dominion has repeatedly dismissed concerns over their systems, citing that CISA confirmed the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. However, Dominion did not disclose that it is a member of CISA's council that wrote the statement put out by CISA. Besides, Dominion also cited the hand count audit to dispute the numerous fraud allegations. Any such tampering would have been revealed by the hand count audit, the company said. This is not true, said attorney Sidney Powell. Dominion software is responsible for taking the voter's machine input and printing it on the paper ballot in a QR code that contains the vote, Powell described. The QR code is read by the scanner, but cannot be read by humans, she added, while noting that the text summary can be read by humans.
Voting is our capability to have a peaceful transfer of power. If you don't have that, the alternatives are revolutions.
We call them voting machines, but they're nothing more than obsolete computers.
2002 is when they put them in service.
A commonly used argument, they are never connected to internet.
No voting machines are connected to the internet.
Not connected to the internet. Not connected to the internet, and therefore cannot be attacked.
Oh, it wants to go to internet. That's very nice.
In 2016, we know that Russian actors targeted state election systems.
When people say no votes were changed, it misses the point.
Imagine you go in and flip the digits of everybody's address.
When you prevent people from casting a ballot, you've hacked an election.
We may be buying the world's best 20th century military when the battlefront is election security.
I had full access. I could have changed any vote.
It's called a kill chain. Weaponization, paralyzation, when the governments cannot take action, that's when you finish the target.
How confident are you that the 2018 midterm elections are going to be legitimate?
I'm very concerned that you could have a hack that finally went through. You have 21 states that were hacked into. They didn't find out about it for a year, and that's one of the reasons that we want to pass our bill so that there's now a requirement that they tell the individual Secretary of States immediately so they can protect themselves.